How are we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and I know it's a little delayed, but welcome to the second iteration of the UFC Thoughts UFC Award Show, this time for the year of 2025. We will be covering MMA throughout the month of January to December, specifically regulated to UFC, of course, as my name is UFC Thoughts. We're going to give out awards to, some really big accomplishments throughout the year. We're going to talk about some lowlights of the year, but we're also going to be focusing majorly on the highlights of the year, mostly with Best Fighter, Rookie of the Year. We have some new awards that I'm going to give out at the beginning of the show. We're going to go through the first couple awards that don't have nominees. But for the rest of the show, after the first 4 or 5, I believe, it's going to be strictly nominee-based on my opinion and what I believe should formulate to give the award to. There are some loopholes that are going to be throughout this show, but I think all in all, it's going to be a very fun and, good little get-together to kind of talk about the UFC in 2025, the end of an era, that era being the ESPN era that we realized would be coming to an end midway through the year. So to start things off, I thought I would go to an award that has already been covered recently, not recently, but in the past show, the Igor Severino Award. There we go. Look at the little boy there. Look at him. The Igor Severino Award, if you do not remember, or if you just don't know because you weren't around on the channel when the award show first got released, which honestly, probably a lot of you, if I'm being honest, which we'll get to at the end of the video when I, talk about myself. The Igor Severino Award goes out to the biggest moment of cheating or, malpractice in the UFC cage. It can either be funny or it can be super serious. It just depends on the year. Last year, obviously, went to Igor Severino because he fucking bit a dude. The dude being Andre Lima, of course. But Igor Severino bit somebody. He got cut for it. This year, there weren't a whole lot of, disqualifications, funny moments regarding, fights falling through or, fights ending in weird ways. There wasn't, any disqualifications this year, if I'm mistaken. There were a couple of fight ending, Mansour Abdul-Malik clashing heads with Cody Brundage is one of those. But we're going to give it to a cheating moment that happened this year, and that cheating moment is going to be Ciryl Gane against Tom Aspinall. Give a round of applause to Ciryl Gane. He used his head as a fucking bowling ball. You can't even make this shit up. Ciryl Gane, where do I even start? First of all, it's kind of an empty nominee class. There weren't a whole lot of, if you wanted to go for a funny moment regarding a fight ending or something like that, it was before the fight even started, but Paul Craig versus both times. Rodolfo Bellato, Paul Craig, both times, first time due to herpes, second time due to him faking going out cold. Honestly, that should probably be the winner, but I think when you go with high-profile moments of cheating, tomfoolery, from this year, the first one that a lot of people are going to think of is Ciryl Gane against Tom Aspinall. The double eye poke that ended the fight that actually has probably set back the heavyweight division quite a number of months, if we're being honest with ourselves. If Ciryl Gane doesn't do that, he could win that fight. He was actually doing very well. It was pretty evens, but in that round, he was winning. But with Tom Aspinall, you never know the one-punch power. But that decision, it's not like Ciryl Gane was he did it on purpose, even though it does look kind of, not as unintentional as other fouls are, but I do believe that this fight-ending illegal sequence deserves the Igor Severino Award due to the fact that it set back the heavyweight division many a month, possibly a year. It depends on when Tom Aspinall is able to return because his eye is all fucked up. But, Ciryl Gane, congratulations. Ciryl Gane, I believe this is his first nominee, let alone award, he's ever won, so good on him. Let's move to a new award. There are maybe 3 or 4, I forget which ones I added, but this one is definitely new. proving everybody, in parentheses myself, wrong award. This goes to a fighter that consistently has just been fucking me up on predictions. There's a couple guys that I could think of, but there's one guy that I genuinely, I'm going to be honest with you, I do not think there is a time that I have picked this guy to win a fight, maybe outside of his debut, and that's going to be Chris Duncan. Give a round of applause for Chris Duncan. I mean, this guy, he just keeps on winning somehow. I don't understand. I mean, Chris Duncan, this guy just refuses to lose. Like, you know how some people are like, going cold is an option? This guy's an epitome of that. This guy he has the refusal to lose a fight at this point in his career. I believe he went 3-0 this year, if I'm not mistaken. I know he beat Terrence. I know he beat not Muktabek. He beat Mateusz Rombetsky, and then he beat, I want to say somebody. It was what's his face? The English guy. He got cut after losing to him. Fuck. The Pandemic, or is it the Epidemic? I forget. Fuck. Why can't I think of it? Jordan Vucenic. That's who it was. I was about to look it up. Jordan Vucenic was another guy he beat. I believe that was in London earlier this year. And then you think about last year, Balaji. I picked Balaji to beat him. This guy just refuses to fucking lose to anybody that I pick against him. I picked against him all 4 of those times. Other fighters that could go for this category, Anthony Hernandez, I decided not to give it to him because I actually picked him this year to beat Brendan Allen. So I can't pick him because like I picked him to win. He didn't prove me wrong there. Any other guys? If Muslim Salikov would have beaten Uros Medic, he would have been primed up to win this award, but obviously he lost that fight. Chris Duncan has just been proving me wrong left and right, though, so I have to genuinely give applause where it's due. And I think we should give another one to Chris Duncan. This guy, I mean, what a year for this guy of just breaking everybody's parlays. Good shit for Chris Duncan. Let's move to the next award, the Krause Award. Isaac Dogarian. Let's move to the next award, the Non-Fighter Award. All right, we're going to skip past that one. That's what that is going to be for the entirety of this show's existence. We're going to skim right past it, but everyone knows what the award means. The Non-Fighter Award. This award is going to go to fighters that, guess what, didn't fight this year, even though it's their fucking job. We're going to look for the most high-profile guy to give the award to, which is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let's give a round of applause for Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, this guy, he's there in the top 3. He's still above Ian Gary. I know he beat Ian Gary, but Ian Gary has 2 successful wins since then. But this guy, he thinks he deserves a title shot, which is fucking ludicrous. Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't even know where to start with this fucking guy. I have never gone from like, dude, this guy's going to become the champ, dude, to like, I don't even think this guy beats like 4 of the guys ranked below him. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Shavkat, I know you guys know how I feel about him. I believe he's going to go on a downfall when he comes back. I believe the injuries have been too much for him, which, by the way, I understand why Shavkat hasn't fought. But I just wanted to give an award out. I wanted to make an award for the Non-Fighter Award. Just because I feel like it is kind of, not ridiculous. He obviously tore his ACL. But there was like a large chunk of time in between there where I don't believe he was all that injured. But he just wasn't fighting. Which kind of pisses me off. Because I know he had, injury early last year at the end with his knee, obviously, and then he went through the first couple months here, and then I think he had another knee injury or something mixed in there in between that time. But yeah, Shavkat Rakhmonov is just the biggest non-fighter on the UFC roster. Other guys you could give it to, Khamzat Chimaev, obviously, just he ain't fighting. Who's Andre Lima referenced earlier in the Igor Severino case. He fought once this year, I believe, and just hasn't fought since then. I don't know what's going on there. Highly touted flyweight prospect. Amir Albazi, go fuck yourself. But yeah, Shavkat, I gave it to him because he didn't even have a fight booked this year. And I think that's got to be up for, obviously he was originally supposed to fight at 315, and then he pulled out Didn't pull out. He just said no to the fight because he's like, my knee still hurt. And then, of course, JDM beats Bilal Muhammad. It's a whole different thing. But, yeah, Shavkat, the non-fighter of the year award. Let's get into some nominations, fellas. Sorry if I sound tired. And ladies, if any of you watch this, I guarantee none of you do. But, hey, it is what it is. Let's move to the first nomination-esque award, the Dominic Cruz Award. Now, if you were here for the first year of the UFC Thoughts Award show, you understand what the Dominic Cruz Award. If you don't, I'll explain it to you. The Dominic Cruz Award goes to the fighter, the best fighter that came back from trial and tribulation in year or years past. So, for example, last year, the Dominic Cruz Award went to two people, Dominic Cruz and Piotr Jan. Obviously, Dominic Cruz came back with two triumphant victories last year over Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith. Piotr Jan, similar thing, Song Yadong and Davison Figueiredo, respectfully. So it goes to fighters that in the past year or even multiple years regarding a person on this list, they have just been losing and not having a ton of success. But this year they showed out, had incredible performances or performance. For two of these guys on this list, or three of these guys actually. But it goes to the guy that, bounced back the hardest, is what it's the bounce back award. You did what you needed to do to bounce back and get a win. So let's get it started with flyweight Kyoji Horiguchi, featherweight Alexander Volkanovski, lightweight Benoit Saint-Denis, welterweight Kamaru Usman, and light heavyweight Yuri Prohaska. These are your nominees for the Dominic Cruz Award, and your winner of the Dominic Cruz Award is Alexander Volkanovski, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get a round of applause. I mean, what are we even doing here? Two ruthless knockouts back-to-back just to bounce back against one of the heaviest hitters in the featherweight division, just to school him across 5 rounds or, just beat him. But what a way to bounce back for Alexander Volkanovski. When you talk about bounce backs in UFC history, I think Volkanovski at 314 against Diego Lopez is going to be, spoken about for many a year to come. Gets brutally knocked out at UFC 294 against Islam Makhachev, comes back way too soon at UFC 298, cutting an extra 10 pounds to fight Ilia Topuria, gets brutally colded in the second round, takes over a year off at 36 years old to fight one of the most dangerous featherweight prospects in the modern era of UFC, in the UFC, Diego Lopez, who at this point was just beating the shit out of everybody. Obviously already had a loss against Movsar Evloev, but since then, that was his debut on very short notice, has beaten everybody, most of which by finish. He has insane punching power, and he was going against that guy, and he ended up taking him to a decision, dragging him into deep waters, taking his best shot, and schooling him on the feet, for the majority of the fight. Volkanovski is the epitome of grit and toughness and just willpower to suffer those humongous defeats and then bounce back. But it was kind of close. This award was not like, obviously he gets it. Kyoji Horiguchi, I threw on there. He was outside the UFC beginning of the year, came back, demolished Tagir Lembekov, and is now in a co-main event fighting the number 6 in his division. Benoit took 2 of the worst beatings I've seen in a single calendar year by one fighter, and ringed off 3 straight wins this year. Obviously, Kyle Prepolek's kind of dog shit, but Rufi and Beneil Dariush, in the fashion that he beat both of those guys, incredible bounce back year for Benoit, very close second for him. Kamaru obviously beat Joaquin Buckley, hadn't gotten a win since UFC 268. Up to that point in June of 2025, he last won in November of 2022, I want to say that year was. So it's been a long time since Kamaru's had the title, which, is very depressing. But it is what it is. We bounce back from losses like that. Obviously 3 fights in a row. Yuri Prohaska, even though he won a fight last year, he was coming into this year, coming off the brutal KO loss to Alex Bahia. Bounced back against Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, winning both of those by 3rd round KO. Incredible stuff from Yuri Prohaska. But standing above all those guys is Alexander Volkanovski, who again suffered 2 KO losses back-to-back. just to win the title against the hardest hitter in his division. So, much respect to Alexander Volkanovski, ladies and gentlemen. Can we get another? No, we're not. We're not going to give him another round of applause, but it would be cool. Let's move to the T. Ferg Award. Now, this award may need a new name, because Tony Ferguson's ringing off a couple fucking wins in good old Misfits boxing, but the essence of the T. Ferg Award is to commemorate the biggest downfall of the year, like who's lost the most that actually had a good year last year that's, not good year, but like kind of just keeps losing throughout the year. So we got 4 nominees here, and we'll start with flyweight Brandon Royval, who, by the way, this kind of sucks for Brandon. Brandon Royval, if you don't recall, was up for the Fighter of the Year non-champion last year, and now he's up for grabs for the T. Ferg Award. Bantamweight Chito Vera, who, by the way, was nominated for this last year. Welterweight Leon Edwards, and middleweight Michelle Pahea. And your winner of the T. Ferg Award is Leon Edwards. Can we get a round of applause for Leon Edwards? I mean, God, he fucking sucks. His hairline is ass. God, can he even get close to getting a win? Probably not. Leon Rocky Edwards. Where do I even start with this piece of shit? Leon Edwards obviously lost twice this year, both by finish. He got submitted by Sean Brady back in March of this year, and then was brutally knocked out by Carlos Prates come November at Madison Square Garden. But that also is him coming off a year where he fought once and was beaten by Bilal Muhammad. Leon, at the beginning of last year, was a champ. End of this year, he's arguably outside the top 10. So, pretty bad. Other guys on this list, Brandon Royval, like I kind of just threw him on there because he lost twice in a row in high-profile fashion. Obviously, Joshua Van short notice, and then Manel Kopp in a main event at the end of the year. Chito Vera fought and lost once this year to Amian Zahabi, which is a terrible loss. I hate that. And then Michelle Pahea, coming off of last year, got beat up pretty bad by Anthony Hernandez. And then going into this year, he also lost twice more to Abos Magomedov and then Kyle Dawkins. So, but I think that high profile-wise, Leon Edwards had the biggest fall off out of all 4 of these guys, respectfully. He went from a champ at the beginning of last year to now not even... People are talking about him like he can't even beat anybody in the top 15, which it's looking kind of rough for him. So, big downfall for Leon Edwards. He is washed. Probably one of my favorite thumbnails I've ever made in my life was that tier list video, and it has come even more true. So, yeah, Leon Edwards, your T. Ferg Award winner. Last year, I believe it was Jared Cannonier, which, honestly, I probably shouldn't have given it to him. I forget who the other nominees were, but, I don't know what I was doing. But let's move to the next award, the Josh Koscheck Award. Now, some of you, I don't know if there's a lot of, super new MMA fans. If you don't know who Josh Koscheck was, he was probably one of the most hated UFC fighters ever. Just kind of because he was kind of a douche, but he was more than anything cringy and annoying. So a lot of people just did not like him at all. But this award, in retrospect to Josh Koscheck, will go to the fighter that we want to see lose the most. So the fighter that we want to have hate watches for, hate watch parties, just being like, I hope he gets fucking brutally knocked out. I'm just kind of hating on him. We got 4 nominees. Let's get right into it. Bantamweight Amian Zahabi, welterweight Ian Machado Gary, middleweight Terez Finney, and heavyweight Josh Hokett. Your winner of the 2025 Josh Koscheck Award is Terez Finney. Let's give a round of applause. I hope that, I forget who he's fighting, I hope that they decapitate you. You're awful to watch. You had one of the worst fights I've ever seen in my life against Robert Valentin, who is terrible at fighting, and you looked worse than him. He arguably could have beaten you. You fucking suck. Terez Finney is probably a major example, of a meme fighter. I mean, just fucking look at him. By the way, he looks jacked. He's only 5'8" at middleweight, so that's why he looks the way he does. Crazy traps on him, big head, big body. Very short and stubby legs, though. The reason why a lot of people don't like Terez Finney is because he he wrestle fucked Robert Valentin in one of those Apex events. I want to say it was Murphy versus Emmett. And it was one of the worst fights of the year. Very boring. He literally threw 0 strikes in round 3 and 2, I believe. None of which were significant, at least. He didn't throw any significant strikes in those 2 rounds. And arguably could have lost while having like 13 minutes of control time, which is insane. So, yeah, Therese Finney just kind of sucked to watch. Hated watching it. It was pretty terrible. Other guys on that list, though, Amin Zahabi, I just think he's kind of annoying. Ian Gary, pretty similar thing. And then Josh Hokett, very similar thing. I think that all these guys are kind of annoying. But Therese Finney kind of stands out because not only is he annoying, his fight style is terrible. You know, Amin Zahabi, even though I give him shit, he actually kind of slugs a little bit. Josh Hokett gets finishes, even though he has one fight in the UFC. And then Ian Gary can actually, like, you know, skillfully dismantle somebody in the octagon, like Carlos, like Bilal Muhammad. Therese Finney, I forget who he's fighting next. I want to say it's on that 324 card. I want to say is what he's fighting on, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's when he's fighting. Is he not? I don't think. Actually, no, it's not. When is Therese Finney fighting? Let me actually get this right. Because I have a feeling he has a fight booked, just no idea when. Let me figure this out real quick. This is a Therese. It's Jacob Malkoon. It's on that 325 card. He might lose that, honestly. I hope he does. But yeah, Therese Finney, we want to see you get knocked out. Let's move to the Matt Serra Award. I got a lot of weird faces on these trophies, don't I? The Matt Serra Award goes to, in my opinion, the biggest upset of the year. I include context. I include stakes in this award, while some other awards, I kind of split that up. The Matt Serra Award goes to, in my opinion, the biggest upset of the year. Like, everything included going into the fight. Of course, Matt Serra knocked out GSP in his first title defense. So, yeah, let's move to it. Bantamweight Raoni Barcelos, bantamweight Carlos Vera. I know some of you probably don't even know who that is. Middleweight Rene de Ridder, and bantamweight Petr Yan. That's out of order. He should probably be behind Rene de Ridder. I go by weight class, so that's a burger by my fault. My bad, guys. But your winner of the Matt Serra Award is... I'm giving it to Petr Yan. I gotta give it to Petr Yan. I know Raoni Barcelos was a plus 950, 1100 on some books, but Petr Yan, 50-45, Merab Dvalishvili is a plus 450 underdog. I gotta give it to him. I got to. You take in the level of competition at the time. Obviously, Peyton Talbot looks insane now, right? Raoni, if Raoni fought him again, Peyton Talbot would probably slime him the fuck out. Let's keep it a buck. But the rapid improvement of Peyton Talbot is why some people will be like, you got to give it to Raoni. He beat fucking Peyton Talbot. But people won't even bring up the fact that he was also an underdog against Ricky Simon, which is something that I'm also going to use to benefit Raoni Barcelos, which is why this is so competitive. Not even just the fact that he was an underdog against Peyton Talbot, he was also an underdog in one of his other 3 fights this year against Ricky Simon, and he also won that. He was a huge favorite against Cody Garbrandt, but you take into consideration all that. It's all cool and all. Petr Yan was a plus 500, 450 underdog against Merab Dvalishvili. Not only did he beat him, he arguably, very arguable, 50-45'd him. At best, that fight is 49-46, in my opinion. At best for Merab. Let's keep it a buck. At fucking best, that's a 49-46. And it's also one of those things where, now, honestly, the explanation could actually give it more towards Raoni Barcelos based on the award's name. I feel like Petr Yan beats Merab again. I don't think he'll be an underdog again. I think Raoni would lose to Peyton Talbot if he fought him again, which honestly could lean more into the Matt Serra aspect of this award. But I feel like when you take in everything included, you take in the fact that Petr Yan got 50-45 the first time that him and Merab fought. He was a plus 500 underdog going into this fight. Merab, this was his 4th fight of the year. He had been making guys like Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, Umar Nurmagomedov, Sean O'Malley again, Henry Cejudo. All these guys since fighting Petr Yan look like simpletons and beating them very clearly. And then Petr just walks in there and 50-45s him, beats the fuck out of him. 49-46, almost finishes him like several times in their fight. Insane level of work ethic from Petr Yan. Insane upset. It was insane. Now, this was another thing last year when I gave it to Brandon Royval based on him being an underdog twice, both 250 underdogs against top 5 talent in the flyweight division, giving it to him over Gabriela Fernandez, who was a plus 1100. Very similar thing. The level of talent is extremely different between these two upsets. One is Peyton Talbot, a tadpole Peyton Talbot that fully was kind of in the game just to be kind of cool, to kind of aura farm, and now Peyton Talbot's really he's really in there now. And then Ricky Simón against Merab Dvalishvili in a 5-round fight nonetheless. It's just different levels, in my opinion. The other guys on this list, the nomination list, Rene de Ridder, obviously, against Bo Nickel, plus 345, beat him. I want to say he was a favorite against Robert Whittaker. Maybe he wasn't. I can't really recall. Carlos Vera beat Josias Musaso when he was like a plus 500. That's the only reason he's up there. It was a crazy finish, wheel kick into submission, so cool shit for him. But Petr Yan, I know, like, odds makers wise, it should be Raoni Barcelos. I brought this up last year. I think when you take in everything to an account, Petr Yan, it has to be him. It has to be. Let's move to another award that is named after a fighter, the Sean O'Malley Award. This award goes to who I believe will be the biggest star to come off the Dana White's Contender Series this year. There was a lot of guys, and this will be the only one where there will be an honorable mentions page that is lengthy as fuck this year, because I didn't feel like I went too in-depth last year, but I feel like I need to this year because I think a lot of guys from the last season really popped off this year. I think the same thing about this year. I think there's a lot of talent coming off this season, so we'll just get right into it. But this award, it has 4 major nominees, a huge honorable mentions list, so let's get right into it. Flyweight, Imanol Rodriguez. Lightweight, Magomed Zayunukov. For you guys, you probably know him as John Pork. Michael Oliveira, who's a welterweight. And then middleweight, Baisinger Susurkayev. The winner of the Sean O'Malley Award is going to go to John Pork, Magomed Zayunukov. Round of applause for John Thin Pork. He might not fight, though, recently, because obviously of the Dylan Danielson, but round of applause for him. When you take into account everything about that goes into a star power, he hasn't even fought yet. Like, there's a guy on this list, Baisinger Susurkayev, genuinely has a fight. Honorable mention, Iwo Baranevsky has already fought this year. They're not even as big of stars as this guy, just because of his fucking nickname being mispronounced. And I also think when you take into account actual skill, Magomed Zayunukov was very clearly one of the best fighters to come off of last season, so he genuinely has a very high ceiling when it comes to talent and ability to win fights. Insane striking ability. His grappling ability is getting there. He obviously trains with Islam and Khabib. He's Team Khabib, that shit. But he has a lot of star power riding behind him, so I think he's the epitome of this award when you really think about it. I think in the long run, it'll probably favor him as well. Maybe Imanol Rodriguez, maybe long term because he's the youngest guy here. But all in all, when you look at star power shit, John Pork is already there. He just needs to win fights. He just needs to fight and win them. That's it. He already has the built-in star power behind him. He trains with Islam. His nickname is Chanko, but he said it weird, so they call him John Pork. This guy's going to be on pay-per-views in his second fight or first fight, depending on how the UFC uses him. This guy's going to be a massive star. When he makes his debut, it's going to be nuts. I'm telling you, it's going to be insane. Let's get into the honorable mentions. That's a lot of names. I'll just start listing them off. Very honorable mentions. Jose Delano, Josh Hokett, Abdul Rahman Yakyayev, Manuel Souza, John Paul Lebeznani, Cesare Oleksiejczuk, Mendel Nalo, Tommy McMillan, Steven Asplund, Carol Foro, Samuel Sanchez, Hetcher Sosa, Ivo Baranevsky, Tommy Gant, Montas Kondratavicius, Murtazali Magomedov, Javier Reyes, Damian Pinas, Luis Jordan, Curtis Campbell, Adrian Luna Martinetti, Mark Vologden, Juan Diaz, and Marwan Rahiki. All of these guys are very honorable mentions because, as I said earlier, there was a lot of talent that came off this season of the Contender Series, and a lot of these guys got insane finishes. So I think a lot of these guys can do a lot of good in the UFC. I think there's going to be a lot of star talent that can be produced if developed correctly. But yeah, I think there's a lot that can go into what happened on the Contender Series this year and the guys that are coming off of it. Let's move to another award, a new award, Breakout Fighter of the Year. Now, obviously, there's no fighter's face on here because there is obviously like people that could apply to this term. Basically, you've been in the UFC for a little bit. People kind of know about you, but this year you really solidified your name with a lot of major people just because you kind of had a pretty stellar year. It's kind of a easy category for the guy here though. So let's start to the nominees. Flyweight Joshua Van. I just did the speed face. Hayoni Barcelos, who's a bantamweight, obviously nominated before. Featherweight Melchizedek Costa. And heavyweight Waldo Cortez Acosta. Your winner of Breakout Fighter of the Year obviously is going to go to Joshua Van. Round of applause. Started out the year unranked to then become champion at the end of it. You literally cannot write a more awe-defying script than the year that Joshua Van had this year. Joshua Van, excuse me, let me get another sugar water. There's been a lot of talking. I see why comedians drink water now. I've been fucking yapping. I got cotton mouth. No. Joshua Van, just insane year. 4 fights, 4 wins. He quote-unquote beat Pantoja. He has a win over him. It's obviously an injury, but he is the champ. He also did beat Royval. He beat Ray Cerruya, and he beat Bruno Silva. He got a finish in technically 2 of them. He had a finish on his own, and then the injury. Fight of the Year candidate, which we'll get into later, with Brandon Royval. Whoa, my keys just made a weird noise. That was genuinely me getting spooked. Holy shit. Ray Cerruya, good performance. He's fought on, I think it was pay-per-views the entire year for him. 313, 316, 317, and 323. So good for him. And the other guys in this category, even though they had great years, respectfully, Hayoni Barcelos going 3 for 3 this year. Obviously, crazy upset against Peyton Talbot, upset against Ricky Simone, and then beat Cody Garbrandt. Breakout year for him. He was kind of already known a little bit, though, obviously getting knocked out by Umar Nurmagomedov, but so was Joshua Van. But Joshua Van became one of the most known fighters on the roster this year, going from like kind of a hardcore kind of like, dude, Joshua Van's fucking sick flyweight, dude, to being like, dude, this guy's a champ. You know what I mean? Melchizedek Costa 4 for 4 this year, 2 finishes. Obviously ended it with a knockout over Morgan Charrier. Subbed Andre Fili, beat Christian Rodriguez, beat Julian Erosa. Great year for him, respectfully. Waldo Cortez Acosta fought 5 times this year, winning 4, losing 1. Winning 4 fights. Were all 4 of his wins? No, because the Sergey Spivak one was a decision. If Joshua Van would have lost to Pantoja, I would have given this award to Waldo Cortez Acosta, even if he had a loss. Because Waldo Cortez Acosta at the end of the year became, like, genuinely was, like, I feel like he was trying to win an award with the, activity he was putting on. Knocked out Ryan Spann, beat Sergey Spivak short notice, fought Sergey Pavlovich, dropped that fight to him, came back, beat Ante Dalia after an eye poke, and then came back a month later and knocked out Shamil Gaziev. So, insane shit from the man Waldo Cortez Acosta. Very close second to this award in respect to all other nominees and other guys that had really good breakout years. Let's get the event-based ones out of the way. Best pay-per-view of the year. We have 4 nominees. This year, honestly, pay-per-view-wise, I'm going to be honest with you, it was kind of weak. I was a little bit shocked with how the pay-per-views kind of played out this year. And name value wise, it was just kind of like, I don't know what it was. But there were some good ones. Now I'm looking back on it. I'm probably missing. I probably forgot about how good some pay-per-views were, but it is what it is. Let's start with the first nominee. UFC 311, Makhachev versus Moicano. Co-main event of Dvalishvili versus Nurmagomedov. UFC 314, Volkanovski versus Lopez in Miami. UFC 317, Topuria versus Oliveira, International Fight Week. And UFC 323, Dvalishvili versus Yan 2. Your winner for pay-per-view of the year, or best pay-per-view of the year, is UFC 323. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I know the main card was not what we expected to be, but shit happens. When you take into account the prelims that happened on this card, every single one of them essentially was a banger. There were hardly any misses. It had one of the best 90-second fights of all time. Some of the most disgusting looking finishes I've seen. Insane shit from UFC 323. And the main card, even though I just said that, it didn't live up to what I thought it would. Cool fight between Jan and Bogdan. Cool fight. Ended in a weird way. Cool fight nonetheless. Payton Talbot, Henry Cejudo. Insane scrap. Literally insane shit that happened there. Co-main event, Pantoja Van. Obviously didn't end the way that we thought it would, or we wanted it to either. Like, obviously an injury is not how you want any fight to end. That sucks. What was the middle fight? Oh yeah, it was Moreno-Tyra. Crazy finish from Tyra against Brandon Moreno. Insane shit. And then the main event was one of the best fights of the year, where we saw Merab and Jan just beat the hell out of each other. Mostly Jan beating the shit out of Dvalishvili, but it was insane for 25 minutes. It was probably one of the best Merab fights he's ever had, and Jan just being vintage as fuck. And then the prelims. Let me roll through some of these prelim finishes for you, just so you understand what I mean. Grant Dawson, Manuel Torres, nasty finish. McKinney, Duncan, insane 3-minute fight. Macy Barber, Karine Silva, alright, it was mid, but it was okay for a WMMA fight. Nazim Sadikov, Ferezian, brutal finish. Marvin Vittori, Bruno Ferreira, alright fight, pretty solid exchanges. Barboza Turner, brutal finish. Ivo Barnevsky, Ibo Aslan, best 90-second fight I've ever seen in my fucking life. Maritzu Abdul Malik, Antonio Trockley, quick finish. Naimov, Myron Santos, slow at the beginning, nasty finish at the end. You love to see it for UFC 323. There are a couple other events that I probably missed out. 322 was pretty solid, and then the main and co-main kind of stunk it up for the rest of the card. 319 was pretty cool outside of the main event, which is why I put those events not on here. When you look at these events here, 311 quick main event, but the co-main event was so sick. Main event for 314, insane shit, crazy scrap. Co-main event, insane finish, and then you had John Silva on there as well. Main event, insane finish. Co-main event, crazy finish. And then there's a couple other fights on UFC 317. Nasty finish by RoboCop on there listed as well. UFC 322 was insane. The main event and co-main event sucked so bad that I couldn't even throw them on here. 319, very similar thing. Great finishes throughout that entire card. Insane. The main event just sucked. It was not fun to watch at all. I love Hamzat, but that fight, I would never rewatch that a day in my life ever. Unless you paid me a decent amount of money, then I would do it. But UFC 323 stood out against the rest. Even though there were some moments on the card that weren't the best, the main event was insane. And for as long as Pantoja Van lasted, which was 20 seconds, it was already a crazy fight. So we talked about pay-per-view of the year. Let's get into fight night of the year. We have 4 nominees for this one as well. Obviously, basically the pay-per-view award, but just for fight nights. Starting with UFC Seattle, Cejudo versus Yadong. UFC Kansas City, Machado Gary versus Prates. UFC Vegas 108, there is a Vegas card on here. There is an Apex card. Tyra versus Park. And lastly, UFC, that says 323. That's supposed to be Vancouver. It's the same thing. DeRitter versus Allen. But that is supposed to be Vancouver. Let's but to the winner of the best fight night of the year is UFC Seattle. Round of applause for UFC Seattle. Insane shit. Literally, probably some of the best prelim. Every single prelim ended in a finish. Insane shit from UFC Seattle. When you look back at this card, let me just read off some of the fights on this, because I can do that, because that's how cool I am. UFC Seattle. Modestas Bukauskas, Rafael Square, brutal finish. Northern Ruziboa, Eric McConaughey Jr., brutal finish. Nikolay Veretennikov versus Austin Vanderford, brutal finish. Ricky Simone, Javid Basharat, nasty KO. Mansour Domalik, Nick Klein, cool KO. Andre Fili, Melchizedek Costa, quick sub. Ian Kutelaba, Ibo Aslan, quick sub. Alonzo Menifeld, Julius Walker, slugfest that was very sloppy, cool watch. John Silva, Melsik Bagdasarian, brutal finish. Rob Font, John Matsumoto, pretty solid fight. Brendan Allen, Anthony Hernandez, very technical, cool fight. Henry Cejudo, Song Yadong, not the greatest main event because it ended in an awkward way, but at that point, that fight was pretty sick. UFC Seattle had basically everything outside of a good ending to the main event, which that's all you can ask for. The stinkers on this card weren't fucking even stinkers. They were solid scraps that were like, obviously, Julius Walker versus Alonzo Menifeld was very, very sloppy, but it was cool to watch. Like, it was a cool watch, so you can't say much. Looking back on it, I probably should have had UFC Qatar on here. That was a crazy card, too. I just said Alonzo Menifeld, and I thought about him getting knocked out by Volkan Oezdemir. But these other cards, insane fights on all these. Pretty cool finishes as well. But I think Seattle stood out above the rest. Let's move to the next award, which is, now we're getting to the major awards. We're getting to the real ones, the personal ones. Rookie of the Year. Now, Rookie of the Year last year was very top-heavy for like two candidates. John Silva and Carlos Prates, respectfully. The other two on that list were kind of mediocre. Ming Yang Zhang and I want to say Ibo Aslan was on there for me, which is fucking diabolical that I had him on there. But this year is much better. We have a lot of talent come off the Contender Series this year, and I just want to highlight that 3 of the guys on here are Dana White Contender Series alums, that all 3 went 3 for 3, all 3 having insane finishes respectfully in all of those fights as well. Not all of them, but most of their wins by finish. Speaking too much about it, let's get into the nominees. Bantamweight, Alexandre Topuria, obviously younger brother of Ilya. Featherweight, Kevin Vallejos. Lightweight, Killen Salkild. And middleweight, Ateba Gaultier, Ngannou Mini Pekka version. Your Rookie of the Year out of these 4 guys is Kevin Vallejos. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Argentinian Ilya Topuria. And I'll tell you why he wins it over these 3. One of the key criteria, in my opinion, for Rookie of the Year is really getting into tough competition. That's one of my big things, is tough competition or getting ranked. That's one of the reasons Prates won it last year. Not only did he win 4 fights via KO, by brutal fashion, by the way, he also was able to find a ranking spot at the very end of that year in brutal fashion. Kevin Vallejos, 3 fights, 3 wins, 2 KOs. Opened up the year against Sung Woo Choi. Crazy finish in the Apex. Fought again in, I want to say August. Is that when he fought Danny Silva? I want to say that's when he fought Danny Silva. I could be mistaken, though. I'll get back to you on that. And then, obviously, at the end of this year, he fought Giga Chikadze in the co-main event of the last event of the year and won by brutal fucking knock. It was August 2nd. It was that UFC 108 card. I'm a fucking genius. Anyways, crazy finish over Giga Chikadze. Shoots him up the rankings. He's number 13 in the featherweight division already. Looking up at John Silva, calling out John Silva, calling out a lot of guys above him, and he's going to get those fights because that's what he's fucking entertaining. The other guys on this, Alexandre Topuria obviously fought twice, once at UFC 312 and then against at Qatar. Beat a, what's the one guy's name? He beat Beksat Almakhan, and then he beat Colby Thickness. I can't believe I forgot Colby Thickness. Fucking, his name is crazy. Obviously beat him both by decision. And Colby Thickness is not good. Not happy that he didn't finish him. And Beksan Almakan came close, but no cigar. Killen Salkilled, very close second. Beat the highest level of competition next to Kevin Vallejos. Nasrat Haqparast more than likely is that. But he also has wins over, he beat Yanal Ashmuz, and then he beat fucking... Do not redeem, sir. Why can't I think of his fucking name? God, I'm forgetting the Indian guy. Oh my God, how am I forgetting his name? I've been recording for too long, bro. How do I forget his fucking name? I can literally see him in my face. I gotta look it up. I can't think of it. Why can I not think of it? Fucking Anshul Jubilee. That's one of the most iconic names in UFC fucking history. How do I forget that? But other than Anshul Jubilee, obviously the more memorable name there is Nasrat Haqparast by brutal head kick KO. His family owns a bakery. Crazy head kick KO. Other guy on there, Ateba Gaultier, 3 fights, 3 knockouts. I think Ateba Gaultier may have a higher ceiling than the other guys, but I didn't like the level of competition he faced this year. It was very low level. Jose Medina, Robert Valentin is pretty fucking terrible. And then Treston Vines, he is literally awful at fighting. And so is Jose Daniel Medina. So I was not super impressed with his level of comp. Killen Salkilled very close second, but he did not get ranked. And his mid-level opponent that he didn't finish, in my opinion, is worse than Kevin Vallejos' mid-level opponent that he didn't finish. Danny Silva over Yanal Ashmuz any day of the fucking week. So, but yeah, Rookie of the Year goes to Kevin Vallejos. Let's move to Submission of the Year. Pretty easy category. There's not a lot of high-profile submissions that happen throughout the year, but it is what it is. Let's get through this pretty quickly so we can get to the fun stuff. UFC 311, Makhachev versus Moicano. UFC 316, Merab Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. And then UFC Nashville, Nizuchukwu versus Walker. Your winner of Submission of the Year, I'm going to give it to Walter Walker. Now, you could realistically give this for literally any of his leg lock submissions this year. I decided to go with Kennedy Nizuchukwu because I thought that one looked the coolest out of the 3 this year. Obviously, he had Don'Tale Mayes in February and then Louis Sutherland in October. But in my opinion, I thought the Nizuchukwu one looked the coolest. The way he went in a clinch and then just dropped down for it was kind of disgusting. And as someone who has knee injuries and has had a knee injury, seeing his shit look like spaghetti, no, I hated watching it. But it is disgusting that he's able to do that at a high level in the heavyweight division. So, yeah, in my opinion, a leg lock beats a rear naked choke, a Darce, or a fucking anything that doesn't really, Kamzat won it last year because he literally broke Robert's face. This dude is taking fucking ankles with him and knees with him all he wants. So heels as well. Heel hooks is what he gets. So good shit for Walter Walker. His first nomination and win, respectfully, for the Clean Monster. Let's move to Knockout of the Year, stakes included. Now, some of you may be wondering, what the fuck do you mean by stakes? I mean stakes as in... there was a meaning behind the fight. It wasn't just some bums in the apex kind of just scrapping it out. This fight had title shot implications. It had title fight implications, or the circumstances surrounding it were pretty fucking nuts. So that being said, let's get into it. Your nominees are UFC 317, Topuria vs. Oliveira. UFC Noche, Lopez vs. Silva. UFC 320, Prohaska vs. Roundtree Jr. And lastly, UFC 322, Edwards versus Prates. Now, that's not the greatest photo of it, but look at Leon Edwards' eyes. Holy fuck. Your winner of Knockout of the Year stakes. Oh, I didn't have it edited to where it would show up afterwards. Oh, that's pretty embarrassing. It is Ilia Topuria. Round of applause, though, for Ilia Topuria, ladies and gentlemen. He is the winner. He is. Hopefully the other ones aren't like that. I hope not. Jesus Christ, that would be embarrassing. Ilia Topuria knocked out Charles Oliveira. Brutal first-round finish. Insane shit. The first guy to ever, knock out Charles Oliveira in that fashion. Obviously, Charles has been finished by TKO quite a few times in his career, but that's like the first time that, damn, he got done dirty. So I have to really give respect to Ilia Topuria in that fashion. Also, just the way it looked. It was one of the cleanest KOs that I've seen this year. The other ones, Yuri was down 2 rounds, and it was, whoever wins that might get a title shot. It's on the same card as Onk versus Pereira 2. Diego John Silva, that fight was probably for a title shot. Diego won. He's got the title shot now. And then Prates versus Edwards, that was just like a huge make-or-break fight for Carlos Prates, in my opinion. He loses that. He, mentally probably loses a little bit, but it's also a huge fight for Leon Edwards, respectfully, because now he's on, the chopping block. They're giving him this murderous contender on the come-up who just knocked out Jeff Neal in brutal fashion with a spinning elbow, and now he's coming for you. And he just cleaned his clock in one of the most brutal fashions. Just straight left, the way he fell down, the smiling face afterwards is brutal to see. But all that falls short and nothing close to what Ilia did to Charles Oliveira in the amount of time that he did it to him. So, stakes included, I gotta give that shit to Ilia Topuria. Moving up a division, chinning Charles Oliveira in the way that he did. Brutal shit from El Matador. Let's move to the next one. Knockout of the year, actual KO. So this just goes to who I thought had the coolest KO of the year. It's going to be, not going to be, but let's get into the nominees. UFC Vegas 101, Almeida versus Razak Al Hassan. UFC 313, Green versus Rufi. UFC Vegas 109, Smith versus Kazama. UFC 319, Murphy versus Pico. And lastly, UFC Vegas 112, Costa versus Charriere. And your winner for actual KO of the year is Mauricio Rufy. Ladies and gentlemen, who's really shocked, though? Who's really shocked? Let's fucking be honest. Mauricio Rufy knocked out Bobby Green with a spinning heel kick. Brutal knockout. There weren't any, crazy specialty move KOs this year. Last year, there was, a lot. A high-profile ones, at least. Vinicius Oliveira flying knee, Shara Bhutan double spinning back fist, Muslim Salikov spinning wheel kick. Holloway Gaethje was obviously not a specialty move, but insane. Nonetheless, insane KO to look at. This year, I went with some, rather, not, insane moves. Almeida, Hassan, Costa Charriere. Those are simple moves, obviously, but they just look sick. Left hook, stiff him out. Costa Charriere, head kick through the guard, knock him out. The other three, Murphy Pico was a close-ass second, in my opinion, just the way that Aaron Pico's footwork really fucking kills him in that finish, and then Murphy just boom. And also the fact it was 2 spinning back elbows in a row was insane. Smith versus Kazama, that's a knockout that I don't see get talked about at all this year that happened. Elijah Smith slamming Toshiomi Kazama through the fucking octagon was insane to watch. Much respects to him. Insane shit. But I think it all pales into comparison. Even though Mauricio Rufy didn't end the year the best, he started it off in a brutal fashion with a huge highlight reel KO over Bobby Green. So, let's move to the next award, which will be Fight of the Year. We're in the long run now. These are the 3 last actual awards that mean a whole lot, and we got 5 nominees to go through. Obviously, Fight of the Year is the most entertaining fight, in my opinion, of the year. Your nominees are, in order, UFC 311, Dvalishvili versus Nurmagomedov. UFC 315, Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. UFC 317, Royval versus Van. UFC Vegas 108, Brenner versus Ribovich. And lastly, UFC 323, Dvalishvili versus Yan 2. Crazy that Merab is on here twice regarding how people see his fights. And your winner for fight of the year is Brandon Royval, Joshua Van, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for fucking Joshua Van and Brandon Royval. Insane shit. One of the most not high level, but just like insane output fights I've seen in my entire fucking life. I wish it was 5 rounds. Would have been insane across 5. The 3 rounds we got was enough, though, to win fight of the year. I just think the output and overall ending to the fight, like Joshua Van arguably sealed it. Like it was a close-ass round, and then he sealed it with the knockdown at the end of the 3rd round. Insane scrap, good shit, insane level of like capability of just striking and boxing, and no wrestling. There's no stalling in this fight. It was literally Brandon Royval on the gas the entire time, Joshua Van on the gas the entire time, countering, power boxing, stomping on the knee. Royval knees up the middle, uppercuts, jabs, right hands, this, that, and the other, that, and third. I mean, they're just beating the shit out of each other for 15 straight minutes. And I think it has to go to Joshua Van when you look at it in that respect. Insane shit from Joshua Van and Brandon Royval. Lovely, lovely shit. And the other guys on here, obviously, Umar versus Merab, great fight. Bilal versus Jack, great fight. Brenner versus Ribovich, I just had to get my good old Ribovich propaganda in there somewhere, so there it is. Dvalishvili, Jan 2, insane fight as well. But I think they all kind of, they're like, some of these are close, like Dvalishvili, Jan 2 was insane. Bilal versus Jack was insane, but I think Royval Van, just the level of output put on by both guys was insane, and I think they both deserve it. So Joshua Van and Brandon Royval join Mateusz Rembecki and Muktabek Orobai in Fight of the Year winners on the UFC Thoughts show. Let's move to the 2 major awards. Fighter of the Year non-champion and Fighter of the Year champion. Let's start with Fighter of the Year non-champion. This award obviously goes to the fighter that I thought was the best non-champion of the year. Now, this is where a loophole is kind of going to play in part, but I don't want to spoil it, but you'll see what I mean. Last year, the winner of the Fighter of the Year non-champion was Joaquin Buckley, and we saw how that went. But let's get into our nominees for Fighter of the Year non-champion. Flyweight Manel Kape, 2-0 on the year. Bantamweight Merab Dvalishvili, that's where the loophole is going to come in. Welterweight Ian Machado Gary. Middleweight Nasruddin Imavov, and you already saw him. Light heavyweight Yuri Prohaska. Your winner for Fighter of the Year non-champion is Merab Dvalishvili. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's kind of cheesy. I know it's kind of stupid, but, like, let me explain. Out of non-champions this year, you look at the rest of these guys. Manel Kape, great year, 2-0. Has earned himself a title shot. Beat Brandon Royval, but his other win is fucking Asu Almabayev. Yeah. Ian Gary is probably the second closest to getting he's probably the guy who, like, if you don't give it to Merab, you give it to Ian Gary. 2 wins against Carlos Prates, who solidified himself as a top contender, and then Bilal Muhammad, coming off the loss to JDM. Nasruddin Imavov knocked out Adesanya and then beat Caio Borralho. Yuri Prohaska, 2 KOs on the year against Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree. But I think when you look at what Merab did this year, I know that he was a champion for most of it. He was a champion for basically 12 months. He defended 3 times and beat 3 guys. If you look at what he did, because he's technically not the champion anymore, right? He's not the champion. If you just look at the year he had, he lost to Jan, of course, but he also had 3 wins, something that none of these guys had. All these guys are tours. All these guys had 2 wins. Obviously, other guys had crazy years. I mean, Waldo Cortez Acosta, Melchizayo Costa earlier mentioned, crazy years for them, respectfully. 4 fights, 5 fights, respectfully. Kevin Holland had a crazy year. Obviously, he lost a bunch, but he had a lot of fights. But Merab, 3 fights, 3 wins, 1 loss, but his 3 wins were against Umar, Sean, and Corey. And I know he was a champion in most of those fights, not most of them, all of them, and he was a champion against Petr Yan. He's not the champion anymore. So, it's a little cheesy, but that's my kind of take on it. if you want my honest take and who I think should get it, if it's not Merab, it's definitely Ian Gary. Ian Gary deserves this award if you don't give it to Merab Dvalishvili based on the loophole that I came up with, but I kind of don't want Ian Gary to win an award, but that's besides the point. Let's move to Fighter of the Year champion. There are only 3 nominees, and I'm going to be honest with you, this year kind of sucked for long-reigning champions and champion achievements. But let's run through it. Flyweight Joshua Van, bantamweight Piotr Jan, and lightweight Ilya Topuria. I know Islam's not up there. I don't care. Your winner of Fighter of the Year champion is Joshua Van. Ladies and gentlemen, Joshua Van got nominated 3 times and won all 3. Can we give a round of more for this tiny man? More. Joshua Van fought 4 times, won all 4. He beat Alexandre Pantoja. Insane shit. I know Islam defended his lightweight title and then became a double champ. I don't give a fuck. He beat Jack Della Maddalena, who is very good, but at the end of the day had no title defenses. Joshua Van, even though he didn't beat Pantoja, he still has a win over him. And I think that it needs to be respected more that Joshua Van did that shit, because it's insane. And like I mentioned earlier, breakout fighter of the year, when you look at what he did in this year, 4 fights, 4 wins, technically 2 finishes. In those wins, he beat Brandon Royval on 2 weeks' notice, essentially, fought on back-to-back pay-per-views in high-profile fights, and then at the end of the year fought Pantoja, and then has the belt at the end of the year. He wasn't even ranked at the beginning of the year. That's fucking insane. Joshua Van solidified himself this year, and I think that he deserves all of it as Fighter of the Year champion. When it comes to the champion category of this year, insane shit from Joshua Van. Love Joshua Van. And I'm happy that he performed the way that he did this year. Insane shit for Joshua Van. Again, can we get another round of applause for Joshua Van? Good shit. That's the last actual award. The last 3 slides I have here are kind of just personal things. My personal best pick, in my opinion, was Rene de Ridder against Bo Nickel. My worst pick, in my opinion, was Roman Dolidze against Anthony Hernandez. And my year in review. My pick ratio this year was 329, 186, and 7 out of 522. That puts me at a 63% correct prediction rate. I don't know if that's one of the highest. I don't think that is. I think it's actually kind of relatively low, but it's all right. You know what I mean? My main event pick ratio was 21, 20, and 1 out of 42. Basically the same as it was last year. I'm not very good when it comes to main events. Pay-per-view main event ratio was 7, 5, and 1, which is crazy when you take into account that at one point I was 7 and 2 at one point. My channel growth, I have gained 200 subs or so this year, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for just watching. You know what I mean? I do this mostly just because it's a fun thing to do, but you guys also add on to that ability of making me feel like I can do this a bit more than I actually do. At one point last year, all I did was upload picks and breakdowns, and that was it, and I got 7 views per video. I don't get that many views still, I only, some videos, bomb, but recently, I've actually been consistently getting more and more views, and I just want to thank you guys so very much for, giving me, for supporting me as much as you guys do. I know some of you got, jokey comments, flukish, glazy comments. That one dude, I fucking forget what his name is, but I find that shit hilarious. But yeah, I appreciate you guys so very much, and I do really appreciate you guys and everything that you guys do. So, thank you. And that's the year. This isn't my last upload for the year, but I do get knee surgery soon, just so you guys know. So I will be out of operation for a little bit. Not like a long time like I was last time, which wasn't that long actually, but it'll still be a little bit. My uploads will probably slow down a little bit. Obviously, Christmas time, hanging with the fam. That obviously also drains it a little bit, but yeah. So if I don't upload on Christmas, which I plan on doing, getting a jokey upload like I did with Thanksgiving, thank you guys for watching. Happy holidays. If you like the video, hit a like. If you want to see more content, subscribe. Leave a comment down below what you guys want to see next. I will see you guys in the next video. And if it's next year, then it's next year. Peace.